You think you are a good person, right? You help your friends, you do not steal, you follow the rules. When was the last time you did something nice and then immediately wanted someone to see it? Today, we are looking at a story about a guy who realized his entire good guy act was a massive lie. By the end of this video, you will question your own motives too. You will be more real, my friend. Make sure to pause the video and think about the questions I ask. Okay, let me set the scene. Paris, France. A man named Jean-Baptiste Clement. He is a lawyer. Not a regular, boring lawyer. He is the kind of lawyer who defends poor people, orphans, widows. The guy basically made a career out of being the hero of every story. He walked through the streets of Paris feeling like the city was built for him. People smiled at him. Women liked him. Even strangers on the street seemed to respect him. By all appearances, he was the most generous, the most decent human being you could ever meet. He was the guy who opened doors for strangers, who helped old ladies with their groceries, who always had a kind word ready, a real star. And here is where it gets interesting. Why do we care so much about looking like a hero to strangers? Think about it. You post a photo of you volunteering at a shelter, and you wait. You wait to see how many people like it. You check back. You refresh the page. Because here is the truth. Doing a good thing is great, but being seen doing a good thing, that hits different. That is the part that actually feels good. That is the part your brain lights up for. And that is what Clements lived for, morning to night, every day. Picture this. Clements is walking down the street one afternoon, and he spots a blind man waiting at the curb. Traffic is flying past. The man cannot cross on his own. Clements walks over, takes the man gently by the arm, and helps him cross the street. And then, and this is the part I really need you to hear, Clements takes off his hat to the blind man. He bows to a man who cannot even see him bow. And in that moment, Clements feels a massive wave of warmth wash over him. He feels good, great, even. But ask yourself, who was that bow for? The blind man could not see it. There was no audience. Nobody clapped. And yet Clements did it anyway, because in his head, he was watching himself. He was the audience. He had built a little theater inside his own mind where he was always the star, always the hero, always the one doing the right thing at the right time. He needed that feeling like other people need oxygen. It was not generosity. It was a theater performance for a crowd of one. That is the thing about fake goodness. It does not feel fake when you are inside it. It feels completely real. It feels warm and righteous and earned. And that is what makes it so dangerous and so hard to catch. But the story does not stay warm for long. Here is the crazy part. One rainy night, Clements is walking across a bridge in Paris. It is late, the city is quiet. He is alone with his thoughts, which is honestly its own kind of danger. And then he sees her, a young woman standing at the railing of the bridge, leaning over, looking down at the black water below. He passes her. He keeps walking, and then splash, he hears it. A body hitting the water, and then silence. And then a voice, far away, crying for help. And Clements stops. He stands there in the rain, and he does nothing. He does not jump in. He does not call for help. He does not even look back over his shoulder. He walks away into the night, like it never happened. Why do we freeze and do nothing when someone actually needs our help in real life? I am not talking about posting about a cause online. I am talking about the real thing, the messy thing, the thing that costs you something, the thing where there is no audience, no likes, no one to see you be brave. Because here is the brutal truth. When nobody is watching, when there is no reward for being the hero, a lot of us walk away. We tell ourselves we froze. We tell ourselves we did not know what to do, but somewhere deep down, we know. We knew exactly what was happening, and we still kept walking. That night changed Clements. Not right away. He went home, he went to sleep, he woke up the next morning and tried to forget. And for a while, he actually did. He went back to his life, his law office, his charity cases, his carefully built image. But the splash that sound stayed with him, buried somewhere underneath everything, but always there. And then a tiny thing shattered it all. He is driving one day and gets honked at by a motorcyclist. A small thing. The kind of thing that happens 100 times a day in any city. But Clemence, instead of letting it go, gets out of his car. He walks over to the motorcyclist. He starts arguing. He is aggressive, puffed up, completely convinced he is in the right. And then the motorcyclist punches him, right in the face, in front of everyone on the street. And Clemence stands there. He does not punch back. He does not say a word. The crowd around him laughs. And the motorcyclist drives away like nothing happened. Why does our ego get completely crushed over tiny things, like someone yelling at us in traffic? Think about it. Someone cuts you off on the highway and suddenly your whole day is ruined. You are shaking. You replay the moment in your head for hours. You think of all the things you should have said. Because it is never really about the traffic. It is about the story you tell about yourself. Clemence believed he was powerful, composed, above the mess of regular life, and a random punch on a random street showed him in front of strangers that he was not any of those things. The mask slipped, and the people around him saw it slip, and that was the part he could not handle. After that day, he started noticing things, little things. He would walk down the street and hear laughter somewhere behind him, and he would immediately assume they were laughing at him, not at a joke, not at something on their phone, at him, at the memory of him standing there, getting punched, doing nothing. The paranoia crept in slow, like a fog. Everywhere he went, he felt watched, judged, mocked. Hold on a second. If you are enjoying the video, consider subscribing. After we make a mistake, why does it feel like everyone is secretly laughing at us? You know that feeling, right? You said something embarrassing at a party 3 years ago and you still think about it right before you go to sleep. You sent a cringe text and now you are convinced the other person showed everyone. Because our brains are built to believe we are at the center of other people's attention. We think everyone is watching us, replaying our failures, keeping score. When, in reality, most people are entirely too busy replaying their own failures to worry about ours. But try telling that to your brain in the middle of the night. Clemence could not shake it. The laughter in his head got louder, and the splash got louder too. The woman, the bridge, the silence after. He had built his whole identity on being a good man. And now, in the quiet moments, he knew he was not a good man. And that knowledge was completely unbearable. So he did what a lot of us do when we cannot face what we did. He left. He packed up his entire life in Paris, abandoned his successful law career, and moved to Amsterdam. Specifically to a foggy, grey, low part of town near the docks, a place that felt as heavy and colorless as his thoughts. He started spending his nights in a bar, talking to sailors, to strangers. And here is where the story gets really, truly interesting. In this bar, Clemence starts confessing. He tells strangers about his failures, about the bridge, about the woman, about all the ways he was not actually the great man he spent years pretending to be. Night after night, drink after drink, he lays it all out, raw and honest. And you think, okay, this is growth, right? That is real self-awareness. He is being vulnerable. He is facing his flaws like a mature adult. He is doing the work. But look closer, because Clemence is not confessing because he wants to change. He is confessing because confession is a power move. Think about it. If you admit your flaws first, before anyone else can point them out, you take away their ability to judge you. You get ahead of the story. And beyond that, when you share your darkest moments with someone, they feel like they should share theirs back. It becomes an unspoken trade. And the moment they do, you have got them. Because now you know their dirt, and now you can judge them. You hold the power. Clemence calls himself a judge-penitent. A penitent is a person who admits their sins. A judge is a person who evaluates others. He is both at the same time, playing both roles in the exact same conversation. He performs humility so that he can earn the right to condemn. He is not trying to be better. He is using the language of self-awareness as a weapon. Sound familiar? Why do we love canceling people and calling out their mistakes online? Is it really about justice? Or is there something else going on? Because here is what I have noticed. The people who are quickest to publicly shame someone else are often carrying something heavy themselves. It feels good to point at someone else's failure because, for a moment, the spotlight moves away from yours. You get to be the prosecutor instead of the defendant. You get to feel clean by making someone else look dirty. That is what Clemens figured out, and he turned it into a system he could live inside, a way of surviving his own guilt by spreading it around. And then there is the painting. Hidden in Clemens's tiny apartment is a stolen painting. Not a random painting, it is called The Just Judges. It is a panel from a famous old altarpiece, a painting literally about righteous people, about fairness, about moral authority. And he stole it. He has it tucked away, out of sight. He keeps it for himself and tells nobody where it is. The painting that represents justice locked away in the home of a man who gave up on real justice a long time ago, a man who walked away from a drowning woman in the rain. Camus was not being subtle here. The truth about who we really are is often hidden in the back of our own closet. We know it is there. We keep the door shut and tell ourselves we are fine. If you had a time machine, would you go back and fix your biggest regret? Not the small stuff, the real one. The moment where you could have done the right thing and you failed to do it. The person you let down. The time you heard the splash and kept walking. Think hard before you answer. Because a lot of us, if we are being completely honest, would rather keep moving forward than face what is back there. Because going back means admitting it was real. It means admitting you were capable of it. And that is the hardest part. Not the act itself, the admission that you were the person who did it. Clemens never goes back. He stays in his grey Amsterdam bar, in his fog, in his confession as power routine, forever circling the same moment without ever really touching it. He never calls it a regret. He calls it clarity. He tells himself he has become more honest than everyone else, because at least he knows what he is. But that is a trick too. Calling yourself highly self-aware is often a way of escaping the requirement to actually change. You can see yourself with perfect clarity and still choose to stay exactly the same. Awareness without action is its own kind of performance. Here is the wildest part of all of this. Camus wrote this book in 1956. There was no internet. There were no social media platforms. There were no comment sections, no public call-outs, no performance of generosity for strangers watching through a screen. And yet this book describes our world so perfectly it is almost uncomfortable to sit with. Because it was never about technology. Technology did not create this behavior, it revealed it. The desire to look good, to feel superior, to confess strategically, to judge others so we do not have to face our own guilt that has always been inside us. The internet gave us a bigger stage. That is all. Clemens is not the villain of this story. That is what I really want you to walk away with. He is not some rare, broken, uniquely twisted person. He is what happens when a regular person, a smart, educated, charming person, spends their whole life building an image instead of a character. When they care more about how they look than who they actually are. When every act of kindness comes with a quiet need for credit, and every moment of failure gets buried instead of faced. He is the guy who posts the donation screenshot. He is the person who publicly calls out a brand's ethics and then keeps buying their products quietly. He is the one who confesses his flaws with a small smile because he knows it makes him look evolved and highly self-aware. Sometimes that person might be you. I am definitely that person sometimes too. The question Camus is really asking is not, are you a good person? That question is too easy. Anyone can perform goodness for an audience. The real question is, what do you do when nobody is watching? What do you do when the choice costs you something and there is no reward waiting at the end? When there is nobody to see you take off your hat and no applause coming for jumping in? Because that is where the real answer lives. Not in your highlight reel, not in your best moments, carefully chosen and shared. In the moments where you heard the splash, stood in the rain, and had to decide. Camus does not give us a clean ending. Clemens does not change. He does not get better or grow or find peace. He sits in that bar and he keeps talking, keeps confessing, keeps judging everyone around him. And maybe that is the most honest thing about the book. Real change, the kind that actually costs you your comfortable self-image and forces you to look at what is in the closet, is one of the hardest things a person can do. And most of us do not do it. We polish the surface and call it growth. But knowing that, really knowing it, not nodding along to it in a video and then scrolling on that is the first step towards something real. Seeing yourself the way Clemens eventually saw himself, without the costume, without the applause, the plain truth of who you are and what you have done, that is where something different can begin. This book is short. It reads like one long conversation between two people at a bar, but it will follow you around for weeks after you finish it, showing up in small moments when you catch yourself doing exactly what Clemens did. Because it does not attack some distant, abstract idea of hypocrisy. It sits across from you, orders a drink, looks you in the eye, and describes your own behavior back to you in uncomfortable detail. That is what great storytelling does. And that is why, after all these years, The Fall still hits the exact target.